Welcome back to the GP Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. And today I've got a former WWE wrestler. We can say that word now again. And Valet, it's Cherry that used to manage Deuce and Domino. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
Doing good. Great to catch up with you. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time today, firstly, anyway.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So, look, we'll rewind probably like everyone does. How did you decide you want to get into this crazy world of professional wrestling initially?
It wasn't a conscious thought until I was much, much older. I didn't really
Yeah.
know that there's a wrestling school or how you get involved. I was just mesmerized by it, forcibly, because my brother was the one that hogged the Saturday morning TV. So ended up getting into it with him. And, through the years, just kind of was a fan and didn't really know that you go to a wrestling school or kind of how you get started, because we didn't have cable to know. Like, I didn't get like Mid South, NWA, like all of that stuff. I got like just WWF stuff at the time. So through the years, as I got older, I started to make friends in my adult life and made friends with someone whose uncle was an independent promoter for wrestling.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what that was, but I remember seeing signs around town that, where the independents would have like posters and stuff. So she's like, you should talk to my uncle. And, you know a lot about wrestling. So he was kind of impressed. He's like, wow, for a girl, you know, like a lot about wrestling. So it kind of started there. And he invited me to go to a show and just see the show. And then after a while, when we would talk wrestling talk, and he was like, well, why don't you come and be a ring girl? So then I just would go to the shows and take jackets. So it just really kind of morphed from there. In the world of networking, you meet a lot of people, you start to make friends, you start to work for different promotions and stuff. So it was a gradual thing. It wasn't like, oh, I wanted a wrestler like a lot of people did, because I didn't know that that's how you get started. I was just enamored with it, and luckily fell into something that I didn't even think I was capable of doing. So that's kind of how it started for me.
Yeah. And of course, before you went to WWE, you were in OVW. Like, how did that come about?
Well, I'd been on the independents for quite some time and made a lot of friends. And my friend Inferno Kid Danny Jamundo was down in Kentucky. I had managed him and wrestled with him for many years, and I was dating Judas Young at the time, who was his best friend, and he was like, "Come do, they're doing a tryout training camp, and for OVW, wasn't WWE. They were very clear on that."
Yeah.
So, I was like, send my application, like whatever, right? I'm like, they're never gonna pick me, so they picked me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go. I'm that weekend warrior. I was used to being out of town for like the weekend to do shows. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go do that, because it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Went and did that, no big deal. And then went home and just called Danny Davis and said, thank you so much. I very much appreciate it. It was fun. I was one of two girls in the class, and I knew a lot of the people already that had signed up for this camp, which made it good and easy. And then Inferno was already down there. So like outside of class stuff, my friend and I would hang out with him and his girlfriend and catch up and stuff. So just called Danny Davis and said, thank you very much. And he was like, we saw a lot in you and you have a lot of potential. And, we would love for you to come down to OVW. And again, very stressed. It was not WWE. It was OVW. And I was at a job that I loved, making great money, 401k, and something in my gut just said, try it. So I quit my job I was living with Judas Young, and he had to stay back. So I moved to Kentucky. Luckily, Danny and his girlfriend, Inferno and his girlfriend, had an apartment across the hall from them. So that was comforting to know I had someone that close to me. And got a waitressing job and waitress during the day and wrestling school at night and TVs on Wednesday. And you always went to the TVs and you always went to the house show, the OVW house shows, to help out and to learn and hopefully get an opportunity to wrestle. So again, networking is an adult life thing. You have to just, it takes you everywhere. Networking is a skill that everybody needs to get ahead in life. So
Yeah.
that was my W run.
When you were down there, were you predominantly wrestling, or were you doing a lot of valet work down there, or where did you see yourself going at that time?
When I first got to OVW, I was more so wrestling because I started in the beginners class because they don't know, what you've done so far.
Yeah.
And some people were starting there as beginners, like real beginners, not coming from the indies. So started the beginners class, and then you advance to the intermediate. And then they had the advanced/contract class, which you couldn't go to unless you were contracted. So I was doing all of their shows as a wrestler. Um, Things happened very quickly for me where the Deuce and Domino thing came up, and then that kind of transitioned more for valeting, which I've done plenty of, and it's definitely not strange to me. So when I initially started, I was doing mostly wrestling, which is what I was
Yeah.
doing mostly on the indies anyway. So that was easy.
Yeah. Of course, you guys done before the main roster debut of Juice and Domino and yourself. You done a lot of dark matches then as well. But what was it like actually being a part of that first match on SmackDown and going out there? I suppose when the red light is on.
Yeah, it was great because you being in OVW and giving you that opportunity to do their developmental gives you a smaller worldview of kind of what it is in the big time. Because Davis Arena, Danny and the crew there really put a lot of effort into making that just a smaller version. So you got to learn cues and TV times and things like that. So when you
Yeah.
go to WWE, it's not as much as a shock. And here's hard camera and this is how you do things. And so it really was a learning experience from being at developmental in OVW to kind of teach you those things. And that's what we would have our TVs for. And Paul Heyman would tell us certain things, and Al Snow would tell you. So you definitely learned a lot from production perspective. So when you go up to the TV, it's like you kind of better know because they're
Yeah.
on such a bigger scale. They have a lot more things to worry about that they can't walk you through some of those things. So it wasn't too bad. It was just exciting to be in an arena and be in places that you've been so used to watching, and now you're part of that. So those were always fun. When I got to go do Nassau Coliseum, because I'm from the Northeast, and do Madison Square Garden and all these places that I had gone to for any sporting event. So yeah, that was fun to see the other side of it.
Yeah, I had Al Snow on the podcast last year, and he basically just said what you said, about the camera positioning and about cutting promos and things like that, and the way it
Yeah.
gets you ready, So I
Yeah.
totally understand where you're coming from there. Do you remember the first time you met the man himself, Mr. Vince McMahon? And do you have any stories about you guys and him, or did he give you any directions or tips back in the day of what he liked or what he maybe didn't like?
I always met him very briefly. He was very busy, and he always has all of his men around him. So the only times that I really saw Vince was at arenas and doing like run throughs. So initially, he would say hi. He had a little bit more of a relationship with the boys because he was very clear on how he wanted them to come off.
Yeah.
So sometimes there would be times after a taping that or a pay-per-view that Vince would just kind of stop them and have like a little powwow about what they needed. So always said hello to me. when we did when I did the Diva competition, I saw him a little bit more because we would do run-throughs prior to the show on any of the competition stuff. So, but he was in work mode. So it wasn't like I chatted with him or anything like that. Always very
Mhm.
kind, always said hello, but definitely a very busy man. There was one time I went to him by myself. later on towards the end, and I was just like, hey, I just want to, touch base with you. Like, I've never had a one-on-one with you, and it was me, Johnny Ace, and Vince, and that was nerve-wracking to do that, but I just really wanted to invest and find out. I want to do what you want me to do. Like, are we on the same page? Do you need something else from me or whatever? So very kind, gave me busy man, gave me his time. We talked about 15-30 minutes. Um, but he was always very nice. Vince doesn't have to be mean. He's got other people to do that for him. But I've never seen him be mean. He has a product. He's running an empire, and he wants it the way he wants it. So I never had any horrible interactions with him. He was always very nice which was
Yeah.
very minimal because there were so many people. So
Yeah, a lot of people, like, I don't really think I've actually heard a bad Vince McMahon story. I've had a lot of wrestlers on this podcast, and obviously we've seen what happened recently, and we're not even going to get into that. But from people I've talked to, like, they always kind of have like a quirky, funny story, or else a story of him just going crazy, but not in a
yeah,
bad way, but just in a kind of like in an angry kind of way.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose another good moment for you guys was when the boys won the tag team titles against London and Kendrick over in Italy.
Yes.
What was
Yes.
that like, and when did you find out that you're actually going to carry the titles then?
I believe is when we were on the tour. Things changed so quickly, and I'm sure you've never heard that.
Yeah.
So, um, things changed very quickly. So we had to adapt to kind of how that was, because when we were in OVW, we had a lot of creative control, and we all worked together. Me, Deuce,
Yeah.
Domino, Al Snow, everybody like had their hand in the pot. Whereas when you're in the big machine, there's a lot of different things that go on. So when we were on tour, and they always did that April-ish 2.5 week European tour. So we heard about it on tour. So a lot of the things were very different for us when we were doing different matches on regular TV as opposed to pay-per-view. We were like, this is more of a pay-per-view draw, but that was weird. But so yeah, it was very last minute, and we were excited about it. That was super exciting, and to have that gone down over there, it makes it unique. So yeah, when we didn't know until until we were into the tour that they decided to do that.
Yeah, and you touched on creative control there. That's something that, like, I like to talk to people about. Say if you're coming onto SmackDown or whatever, and you guys are doing a promo, how much of that is like handed to you guys on a piece of paper, or was there any kind of wiggle room with anything with the writers and I suppose the people in charge there?
We didn't get any. I mean, we got a paper of what they wanted, and it was more so like a brief description of what they wanted. We didn't have to memorize things. They really liked our gimmick, so they let the boys kind of like spew their characters the way they liked it. So, I mean, there was more direction on they wanted us to do this, and then they wanted me to come in screen or not. Like, it wasn't as scripted. We didn't have long promos. So when we made our debut, that promo that we did was written all by us. That was something we did to introduce ourselves. And we did that in OVW too when we first got together. So we never had word for word written promo scripts for us. It was more
Yeah.
so, this is what we're going to do. So I liked that because we really had marinated and got to bring the characters to life. So we knew the best way to kind of get that
Yeah.
across. So we were lucky in that sense.
In terms of yourself then, with the creative control around maybe promos and stuff like that, who decided the outfits, or what way did that come about?
It was all us. And
Okay, really? Yeah.
yeah. So the boys did their thing, and they had come up with the gimmick initially. And, Domino was the one that wanted a girl. And neither one of them knew they just wanted her on old school roller skates. They didn't know what she looked like. They didn't know what her name was. So it was all us. So I think the boys for Greasers, I think it was a little bit easier for them to figure that out. I
Yeah.
kind of had come up with my own gimmick and character, and I kind of try to do like the poodle skirt take on it, and but definitely highlight the boys in a lot of my outfits, because the dynamic was they were my world. My brother and my boyfriend were my world, so they were always incorporated for me, just to kind of keep true to the character, which was very important to us because we really loved the character, and it was so unique, and it was, we had so much fun with it. We had so much fun with it.
it still resonates to people these days. Like you often see, like if you're scrolling on Twitter and stuff, Juice and Domino and yourself pops up on timelines. What do you think it is that people still have that, I don't suppose, love for the characters?
I think just because they were unique and we didn't get to do as much as we wanted to do. I think people still yearn for what we were capable of. In OVW, we did so much. We had different, you know, moves in our arsenal, and we had different angles and different things that we were able to play with. And I never took the skate off in up on SmackDown, and they have the boys use that as a weapon, and or use
Yeah,
me as a weapon. In OVW, they used to pick me up and I used to kick people with my skates and things like that. So I think there's always that yearning for people saw what we can do in OVW, but the main national world universe, WWE universe, didn't see any more of that. So I know we yearned for it. I'm sure that's what people wanted to see, more of that, because it doesn't take a genius to figure out that there's more dynamic and more entertainment that we can bring. Let us be together and wait for a very long time. Let us really marinate and get our characters out there before they separate me. I just think the separation was so soon, and we
it
had so much
didn't.
more to
Yeah,
give. Yeah.
yeah. When you look back on it, it didn't do any favors for the guys either. Really, it didn't really. It wasn't the same. It didn't have the same effect or vibe really when you left.
It just, yeah, we weren't pleased with that, but what are you gonna do,
Yeah.
so
Whose
yeah.
idea was it to split you guys up at the time? Was it just a writing decision, or?
I think it evolved very quickly because the competition came out, and they were, Michelle was our main flagship girl, right?
Yeah,
And she was feuding with Victoria, and there was only so much you could do, and they were doing great stuff, but they just had all these other girls, so they incorporated this diva competition. And I don't know if the diva competition was legit with the voting, but I always remember Elijah Burke pulled me aside and said, you know, and we knew each other from OVW.
yeah,
So it was great. And he just said, what do you think of this diva competition? And I said, because I made it to second. And I said, listen, I was like, if the voting is legit, then I couldn't be happier that people voted me to second. If it's a total work, then the office wants me to be there to second. It's a win-win for me. I knew
yeah,
Michelle was winning. It was a win-win for me. Nobody, you would think based on that storyline that it would be a heel and a face girl going at it, but I really liked not only the opportunity for myself, but it ended up being girl, and then we were able to bring in Natty and just create that dynamic. And I never knew that was ultimately what was going to happen, was bringing Natty, but I had a great time, and I took it for what it was worth, and I was thrilled either way. So
yeah,
and I think that point when they realized whatever the decision was to move in that direction, I think they put a lot of faith in me, and thought that was just better at the time. No one ever said, "Hey, we're splitting you up, and this is the way it's going to go, and you're going to go in the diva time." No, because they try to pull us back together so that Maurice could get her storyline with the boys and kind of branch off.
yeah,
And it was very brief, but it was never like, we're splitting you guys. It just kind of happened where they threw me into the diva competition to just add that extra girl. So there was never any
yeah,
notification of it. So
yeah. It just
yeah.
it just happened. A lot of people always talk about WWE various locker rooms from different generations. How did you find the locker room that you were in, and was the Undertaker a big part of locker rooms, as people say, in terms of keeping people together and keeping the peace?
Oh yeah. I mean, the girls in my locker room got along great. I think we're all sisters, and people had disagreements or whatever, but for the most part, I mean, we didn't have any. I didn't have any, disagreements mostly. And as far as the guys, I don't know. I mean, I know Taker was a locker room leader. To my knowledge, he didn't always dress in the main locker room at TVs. He always had kind of his own, and sometimes he wasn't
Yeah,
even there. But when he was there, like he was present. He would watch every match. He would be out there during the day. And he helped the girls a lot because him and Michelle were together. Um, and he was, oh, what a wonderful human being. Like, he would talk to me for hours if I wanted to or had the time. Like, it didn't matter who you were. like he took time out to talk to you and give you advice and just, not necessarily talk wrestling, just talk every day.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, I mean, there were definitely leaders, but my girls' locker room, I mean, I was also shy, so I got along with everybody, but I also tried to stay out of the way. So I used to put my stuff in like the corner, and there were girls that were full on wrestling and there were main storylines, and I was just kind of like the valet, and then started to get involved. So I just was very respectful of who
And
was there.
uh, of course, fellow Irishman Fit Finlay probably would have been heavily involved with you guys as well.
Oh, Fit's amazing. Love Fit. Oh my gosh. I really enjoyed working with him, and I think that when I came in, I think it was the same thing. Like people, when I got signed, Johnny Ace didn't even know that I was that I'd wrestled or learned, and so I loved doing some of the matches and like being able to contribute, because like when we had multi-girl matches or even my match with Victoria in London, and it was like, I think it was like my second or third match, and Fit was kind of, I had to go over, and Fit was trying to figure out how to get it together, and I pitched
Yeah.
the idea that Victoria just slaughters me, right? And then I just kind of like they were very clear they did not want Michelle getting involved in the match. So Fit was kicking it around. I go, well, why doesn't Lisa just kind of beat me up? I roll over to Michelle and just like, I can't do this, like cry. And then Victoria comes and pulls me away from Michelle, and then Victoria gets in her face. So that Michelle has to jump on the apron and get back in her face, and then I roll her up. And Fit was like, great. And I just like, when Fit says, like, just doesn't even question what you're saying. It's just like, perfect. Like, I was like, ah, just like, you want Fit Finlay's approval, because he's just an incredible. So that's fun when I was able to contribute something or help him out with an idea. I mean, he has a lot going on, but that made me feel so good. And what was the other one? It was one of the Golden Dreams matches. Like, we were kicking it around, and I was like, listen, we all want the so stupid, that Golden Dreams match.
Yeah.
We all wanted to jump up to get the star. I go, why don't we just start it? Everybody just charging for the star. That's what we want, right? And he's like, perfect. And I was like, it's just like when Fit loves it, you just like, you feel like you just belong. It's just great. I love him, and he's so good. He handles the girls really well. We can be very emotional sometimes, so he's
Yeah.
perfect.
I'd say the best way to probably describe him, now I don't know him personally, would be stern but fair. That's probably the way to describe
Yes. And he's so cool, like off the clock, I would say. So when we would be on tour and we would hang out after the show, like just being able to just hang out and talk and not talk wrestling and just be silly, and so kind, so great, just funny. And, you know, I remember one time I forget where we were going, but we were going through security, and whatever country we were in, I always brought my skates, and you always bring your skates and your gear on with you, right? Never
yeah.
check it. So they were gonna take my roller skates, and I was like, there was now I had skates at TV, like they have a girls box, and I had a pair there, but we were still doing our loop. So they're like, that's like a weapon or something, and I was like, Fit's gonna
Jesus.
take my skate. So he smoothed it over, thank God. Um, but I would have been majorly screwed, because we weren't anywhere near the TV trucks at that time. So it's not like I could have just grabbed the other skates that they had at the TV production truck. So yeah, he saved my butt.
He gave him the old Irish charm.
Oh man, yeah, he worked it out for me, but they were going to take it. So, I mean, listen, those skates are a lug of bricks in my bag. I would rather not track them around, but it was my gimmick. I mean, they were heavy, so I get it.
Have you still got your skates?
Oh yeah. Yep, I
Yeah.
have two pairs. I gave a pair to Domino because we did an Odds Fest one year, and Ozzy Osbourne signed the skates, and he was so enamored. So I was like, take my skates. And I think I sold a pair to someone who is like dying for them, but I still have two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the middle of that kind of tag team run in 2007, when the guys got the belts and everything, they had a match against Sergeant Slaughter and Jimmy Snuka at that Vengeance pay-per-view, which was a huge deal at the time.
Oh,
But obviously, it was a good moment, but like when you look back on it, that was the night that Chris Benoit didn't show up for work and all that kind of stuff was going on. So what was your experience like with Chris? And then secondly, what was the mood like for the weeks and months after that? Because it was a terrible time for, I think, everyone associated with the business. It's never been really a darker time that I can remember.
That's a great question. Very sad situation. Chris was very, very quiet. Um, he had his friends and he hung out with Chavo, Scotty, Dean. He hung out with, who he was close to, but he was always very kind. But he took his job very seriously.
Yeah.
I know that there was one time he was giving feedback to the boys, and I always try to be respectful, but always wanted to be included because I that's how I learned is, at least being there and listening and, knowing what's going on and then getting that feedback. Because even though I may not be the wrestler, doesn't mean I can't learn from it. So, he was very stern on something with the boys, but very serious. I mean, he was never aggressive or, but very quiet and guarded. So, but again, he was always hung out with Scott, his crew. So when that happened, I mean, I wasn't really aware that it would like, I know he hadn't showed for those, and it was like a brief thing because like Scotty and Chavo and them, like they didn't tell everybody, but
Yeah.
it was just I had my own thing going on, and he wasn't like he was just does a Dylan thing, so it wasn't really present in my brain. So then when the day of, I mean, sure, I was like, that's bizarre, but it's none of my business.
Yeah.
Sure, something's fine. So that Monday, that Monday, I just remember we were in Texas. I don't know if we were Houston or Dallas, but they had called everybody to the arena. And it was ironically the episode, was it?
Yes, of
Yeah. The
course.
episode where
Vince.
Vince was, yeah, passed away or whatever. So
Yeah.
that was horrible. So we're all in the arena and we're like thinking, I don't know, maybe they were going through something. So for Vince's thing. So all I remember is everybody sitting around the ring and Vince and Stephanie come out, and I just see Vicky losing it over to my right side, and Dean and Chavo are like, and I couldn't really hear what she was saying, but she was losing it. So they pull her out, and then they basically told us they didn't know anything other than that
Yeah.
there was something that went down, and Chris and the family are no longer with us. So I mean, it was a shock. So we all were like, they said, if you want to do like a video memorial for him, stay and do a memorial, but they're going to cancel the show and they're going to. Nobody knew anything at that time.
Yeah.
And fair enough, nobody knew anything, and we all just thought this was one of our comrades. This was one of our family members, and we don't know anything. So it was me, Domino, Maurice, I think Ms. Hornswoggle. We went back to the hotel and was watching the news just to get anything. So it was like either you could stay, do the show, hang out, you could move on to the next town. Because then SmackDown was Tuesdays, so we would move on to SmackDown. And we were just all clamoring, like what happened? Like, so it was shocking to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shocking to say the least. So it's sad. It's, we'll never know. I just hate that it happened. I hate that all three of them are not here. Like, he created a legacy for himself. Like, what happened in his head that would even, it's just a horrible, horrible situation. So, yeah, I mean, he was always very nice. He'd always say hello, but again, very private, with only his inner circle. And they always say that the Eddie passing really affected him. And Eddie was great too. I met Eddie a few times, so not up there, but when he's on the independents and stuff. So it's crazy and sad.
Yeah.
Really
It took a
sad.
long time, I think, for the wrestling world to kind of, I don't know if they'll ever get over it, but kind of move on from it. Like it was massive in America. It was even made news over here at the time, and there was a lot of kind of,
Sure.
I guess, pressure on the company back then. But thankfully, nothing in that line has happened again, and hopefully never will.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we go on to something more positive, anyway, you were
Yeah.
Natalya's debut match. So we'll swing it right around full circle again.
Oh my
And like,
gosh, yes. Her
and I
debut
see
match.
like,
We loved
yeah,
that match. Um, and it was great. And I was so thrilled and never thought that our friendship would build so well off of that. So, you know, excuse me, Fit gave us very specifics for that match. And Fit had always told me that Vince was very high on my facials. And I kind of learned that when I was little. Like I recognized facials. So I was very aware of my facials. And Vince never told me himself, but he'd always told Fit like they love my facials. So they had certain things they wanted to see me click when I had enough in that match. So match was amazing. I loved it. Went back through Gorilla and got a standing ovation. So it was thrilled. Fit like hugged us, and it just felt really good because I was proud of my friend. I was so happy to be there with her. We accomplished what they asked us to do. We hit all the spots that they wanted us to hit, and Fit couldn't have been more thrilled, which it was just incredible. Yeah, so that was fun. That was a lot of
and
fun.
it's crazy to think that she's still there to this day, like since then.
I
And
know.
like,
I'm like, girl, my back is still hurting me. Like, wrestle. And she has her own ring, so she wrestles and works out on her own Wednesday nights, Tuesday and Wednesdays, depending on their schedule. So she's a beast. She
yeah,
just is like, I mean, I don't think anybody could do what she does, but it is truly, truly in her blood. She's incredible.
yeah. I've got a question for you about Natalya, and I know my answer to this. Do you think that she's been underutilized for such a great wrestler that's been there so long? Like she hasn't really had a lot of, I suppose, gold around her waist as well, and the long title runs and things like that.
I think Natalya's had a very successful career. I think that
Yeah,
not necessarily underutilized. I think at sometimes they can underutilize her, but they need to tap into. They have no idea how Well, I shouldn't say they have no idea. She's extremely talented.
yeah,
The creative, the talent. She constantly invests in herself. Like every aspect of her position there she has absolutely brought 1,000% to, whether it's public appearances, whether it's creating, putting more time and investment into her character, into her gear, into her training, into her ideas. I don't think it's underutilized. I think they definitely have utilized her. I think there's times where she's not, um, for whatever reason, maybe they have a different storyline going on, but she's had a great career. I think that there's so much more that she can do, so much more that she can contribute. And,
yeah,
she has such a mind that they do lean on her because she is so good at it and has such a mind for it. So, another thing that, she's invested in, just her longevity and her reliability and loyalty and is so creative and sometimes I'm in awe like just when we're hanging out like the things that watching our TV and going you know that was an awesome spot, that was an awesome angle. So I do want to see her more doing stuff, and she has a lot more to give. Surprisingly,
yeah,
after all this time she has so much
yeah,
more to give and is so much more to offer for entertainment, and people
yeah,
want to see that. So um yeah, I mean it just happens in wrestling where you get a run, it comes full circle, and you go back in again. I mean she's there's a reason why she's a Guinness Book of World Records, because
yeah,
it's legit. It's a legit record. It's not
yeah,
made up or it's not like a storyline on TV. So, yeah, she's incredible. She's incredible
yeah.
human.
I think she's one of the best technical female wrestlers that I've seen on that product for a very long time, and I'd like to see a lot more of her. I'm not like maybe I don't know if underutilized is the right word, but I want to see her at the top, for a long, long run. I'd love to
Yes,
see it. You can
because we
tell
can
that you
rely
can
on
tell
her.
she's a heart.
Right, she can carry the show. She can be that champ that you need in all aspects of that role. Some people, you know, don't know what to do with that role. So she's absolutely someone who can really bring legitimacy, great, keep legitimacy with it. Cause I think they've been doing great with the champs they have, but she can offer great legitimacy to it and be super creative. So
Yeah.
she's incredible.
What about yourself then? What's current life like for you? What are you doing? You're totally out of the business now at the moment, yeah?
I am. I'm quiet. I'm private. I love my peace. I mean, it's funny because, um, sorry, my mom's
Okay, you're back.
calling me. Sorry. Um, Natty TJ and I are always like, we always say, like, people are like, oh, why don't you go on vacation? It's like, I've been on planes and traveled so much that being home in my own home and peace and quiet and that's a vacation to me. Like, I don't need to go, to the Caribbean or go on a cruise or anything like that. I just love being home. And we do spend a lot of time, at Natty's house, and she's a gorgeous house. And just having that quiet, peace and quiet home alone, no place to be, is watching my shows. I'm big into ghost adventures and documentaries. So, just having that peace and quiet time is really, I do have I'm going to be a WrestleCade Thanksgiving weekend. So it's been a bit since I did an appearance, but I'll be there. But yeah, I haven't done many wrestling stuff. And I'll do appearances and virtuals like every now and again, but I'm very selective because I don't want to saturate the market either, because
Yeah.
everybody sees, somebody. So Barbie taught me that. 'Cause Kelly will do a lot of these and get a lot of stuff, and she's like, "Oh, I was just there," because people ask, "Oh, do you have connection to this person, that person?" They're like, "Oh, I was just kind of there." So, yeah, it's more private, definitely out of wrestling. I don't think at this point I can get back into the wrestling ring, but I would love a Royal Rumble appearance just for the fact of I never did it. They're doing the girls now, and
There's
everybody
our
loves the
headline.
surprise.
There's our headline.
Everybody loves a surprise appearance. We always pop for that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
So
in
you're
Florida
open
now,
to a
so
Royal Rumble appearance.
I know. That's so fun. Now that the girls got like their own match.
Yeah. Well, look, what I'm going to do is I'll put all the links to your social media under this video, and
Great.
anything else you want to say. You're on Cameo. You got a few 8x10s and stuff like that. So do you want to give a shout out to them?
Yeah. So, my photos have been going great. I'm so sad that I didn't think of that earlier, but yeah. So if anybody was looking for any signed 8x10s, you can contact me on Twitter, former Diva Cherry. I'm on Instagram as DDC Chick. And you can contact me both of those places for photos, which is great because I'm getting a lot of requests, and I'd love to be able to send that stuff out. I am on Cameo as well. And then, yeah, that's it. Am I on any others? No, that's it. But it's been great. So I just feel so bad I haven't offered signed photos, and it's going so well right now. So I'm like, whenever anybody wants anything, just contact me. I'd be happy to assist.
Yep, and I'll put all the links underneath this video. Cherry, absolute pleasure to catch up with you today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. It was great to
Yeah,
talk to
you
you.
too. Your mom can ring you now.
I know. Yeah, I got to give her a call back. Jeez, mom,
Thanks.
I'm in an interview.